Now, I want to back up for a moment and talk a little bit about some general principles of defense. First, you need to think of levels of defense. For example, defense is conceptualized something very differently when I have a tie-up with my opponent, or for example, defending against their 2-on-1, relative to, for example, if my opponent already has my leg. And so you need to think of various levels in terms of the levels where your opponent is farthest away from being able to score on you versus closest in his ability to be able to score on you. And that will necessitate different type of tactics and strategies. Also, it's important to think of defense in terms of controlling your opponent with your tie-ups and using your own offense. Again, the notion that a good defense is a good offense, or that a good offense is also a good defense. Hand control, pummeling, which we'll be going over in a future instructional, hand fighting, all of that is crucial, because if I can control my opponent with my tie-ups, with my movement, and with my attacks, so that they're most typically responding defensively to what I'm doing, I don't worry so much about an attack upon myself. And that's important, because if I can eliminate the attack in the first place, one, I'm going to be able to think more about my own offense, which is more likely to score in the first place. And two, I don't have to worry so much about my opponent attacking me. So I'm not quite as fearful if I know I've got good tie-ups and I'm good in a pummeling situation. I'm confident in that. I know I've limited my opponent's ability to attack me. Another thing that's important, your hands are always the first line of defense. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, an even earlier line of defense could presumably be your tie-up and your control, your pummeling. But once my opponent actually attacks me, it's crucial that I do not let him get past my hands. That's my first goal. As my opponent attacks me, because my stance is good here, my hands are down, I want to be able to block that attack with my hand, such that he runs into the hand, I can sprawl down, keep my hips down, prevent him from securing a good lock on my leg. That's crucial. The defense I'm going to be talking about in a little bit involves mostly when our opponent has already obtained our leg. But it's crucial to remember that my goal isn't to let my opponent get my leg so that I can go through that defense. I would much rather block him with my arm. When I block him with my arm, I'm going to go into a head and arm series, or a front headlock series. It's called by different names. We'll be going over that in a future module. But that's a whole different aspect of defense and offense. So it's crucial to think about blocking with your hands first. If I'm successful doing that, I'm probably going to be able to snap my opponent down or get him in a front headlock or a front head and arm position. We'll be going over that again in a future instructional. But if he gets past that, then we're going to go to our defense when our opponent actually has our legs securely grasped. If my opponent does attack, it's important that I have a good sprawl. And my goal is to prevent him from being able to secure my legs effectively. So if he's going to make contact with my legs, I want to make sure that I can do my best so that he doesn't have a good grip at least. Now, if I've got a good sprawl, that will facilitate that. Remember, and reviewing as we went over in the first module on basic movements, I want to keep my arms in, my hands out in front of me. I want to keep a relatively low position. When I sprawl, it's important that I lower my hips and lower my hand, and my hips go down without moving back. My goal is not, and this is a mistake a lot of people make, is to sort of float up and back. If I float my hips up, sort of jump up first before I come down, one, I've just raised the level of my hips, which will facilitate my opponent's attack, because his hips are going to stay lower than mine. And two, naturally by coming up and then coming down, that takes more time, and that allows more potential for him to be successful in getting my leg in the first place. So when I sprawl, I want to come down as fast as I can. down. And I'm going to be arching my back. My head will be up. I don't want to be on my knees, because if I'm on my knees, my weight isn't blocking or pushing down on my opponent. Part of it's pushing down on the mat. So I'm on my toes here. My lower part of my abdomen is going to be hopefully somewhere around his head, and we'll review that shortly. But again, the basic sprawl, moving around, down,